overall impressions of how the rest of that weekend went. I'm just going to give you the floor here. And what have you been hearing? What are the takeaways?
Yeah, I think one of the big takeaways I've written about this, talked about this on WSBT Sports Beat, is that from Brian Kelly down to the student interns, Patrick, there was just a feeling of like camaraderie and forward facing, same vision. Um, Dysfunction is not a word that it would be used to, describe the Notre Dame recruiting operation right now. Like, to be fair, that's exactly what Notre Dame wants. It's that like when you have several dozen people. People are messy. We're flawed. We're selfish. We have ego. So you have to train people to be like, look, this is what you have to do. When you're here, but like the people I talked to on the visits, families, the recruits, just various sources, people felt like it was genuine, and you can't BS, not being genuine, so those people involved in the visit, from Kelly down to student interns just driving a golf cart or serving food or whatever, like it just, from what I was told, it was just an incredible job by Notre Dame. So that's kind of the overarching theme, if you want to look at it from 10,000 feet. And now kind of getting into the nitty gritty of specific guys. I'm not going to touch on every single visitor from the weekend, but a few that I thought stood out to me. Obviously, Singleton, the 4-star running back, talked about him earlier in the show, but Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin, offensive tackle Joe Brunner. That this was a big visitor for Notre Dame. He had been on campus twice. Everyone has kind of assumed he's going to go to Wisconsin. Our YouTube folks see the FutureCast picks in for him. John McNamara, Wisconsin recruiting guy, put one in back September 21st, 2019. So, people thinking that he is a Wisconsin lead for close to 2 years. Brunner and Carson Hinsman, who we're not going to touch on just for the sake of time, they were Notre Dame's first 2 offensive line offers in the 2022 class. Patrick, I'm sure you can just take a wild guess. People who listen to our podcasts and videos know the date. I mean, Patrick, or the month and the year.
November 2019.
That's exactly when it was. That's when Joe Brunner got his offer from Notre Dame. He returned to campus February 1st for a junior day at Notre Dame. And then that was the last time, he had been at Notre Dame. So it was actually good for him to see Notre Dame again before the start of that dead period with COVID. So took his return visit. I think it went really, really well. I think it's Notre Dame or Wisconsin. Probably I'm leaning Wisconsin, but I think Notre Dame might just pull off this upset. I know I'm not really stepping on a ledge saying I don't know, but I think Notre Dame's got a better shot here than people think. And it's kind of the same with Emile Wagner from Huber Heights, Ohio, Wayne High School, which is, of course, the same high school that Marcus Freeman and Mike Mickens, Notre Dame coaches, graduated from. That's where they played their prep career. Roosevelt Mooks is the head coach at Wayne High School right now. He was assistant coach when Freeman and Mickens still played there. So there's a connection there. I'm actually told Roosevelt is going to Notre Dame on Thursday. His son will be participating in Notre Dame's final camp of June on the 24th. So, there's just a lot of cool connections there. Wagner hung out with those 2 guys. They got to reminisce about, their time there and just kind of talk about what's still going on at Wayne High School and everything. But Wagner, everyone just assumed he was going to Ohio State. He visited there the first weekend of June, and the feeling was that if he doesn't commit, Notre Dame's got a shot. And he didn't commit to Ohio State. He's also really looking at Kentucky. That's where his brother, I believe his brother played basketball at Iowa and then transferred to Kentucky and played football or something like that.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Crack staff is already looking that up. Great job by them. But the feeling with Wagner is that he is just a highly academic, fantastic fit at Notre Dame. And I feel like if he lands at Notre Dame, that's going to be the biggest thing. It's just such a strong off the field fit for Notre Dame. Sometimes, academics hurts Notre Dame. They can't go out and get a kid that they maybe would like to offer. But in this case, it helps them for sure. And it obviously does with many other recruits, but I think with Emile Wagner more than others. Cyrus Moss, definitely got to talk about the number 4 weak side defensive end in the country, number 89 player overall in America. He had a really good visit. He's not deciding anytime soon, so whether Notre Dame or Oregon's the leader right now or someone else, to me, it's just if he's deciding in November, that's 8 years in recruiting timeline. That's so far in advance. Don't want to touch on him too much. But here's one thing that's really interesting, Patrick. And maybe you know this, and I'm just a dummy, and I've been covering recruiting for a while and didn't know this. But so Cyrus Moss flew from Vegas to Atlanta for the 5-star challenge. And then he flew, so that was on Thursday. He got in Thursday morning, probably took a red eye, right? And then he left the 5-star challenge to get on a flight up to South Bend. When you go on an official, it's paid for by the school, but the school has to send you back to where you came from. So Notre Dame couldn't have sent him down to Vegas. So Notre Dame had to send him back to Atlanta, and then Moss drove over to Alabama and took an unofficial visit there. So my point here is I did not know that you had to go back to the same place that you came from for your flight. Is that an interesting tidbit, or is
I never knew that.
Nerd? Yeah, isn't that interesting?
It is. Yeah, it's fascinating because we just talked about him earlier in the podcast. But Nicholas Singleton, like you mentioned, he's going from his hometown in Pennsylvania near Reading, not exactly a bustling airport, to Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think they do Philly though. I think they fly to Philly.
Still, you have to drive there a little bit. And that's not all right, half an hour or whatever. Yeah. So you go into Texas A&M, fly back to Philly. And you go the next day back to Alabama, where it's all right, those two SEC schools aren't that far apart. But instead he goes back home for probably 12 hours or something.
I know.
Yeah, that is a really interesting little quirk that I did not know.
Yeah, Alec Aomaner
sets up Moss to do that unofficial to Alabama.
Right. Yeah, so it kind of helps him there. But Alec Aomaner, this one is crazy too. He was at Cal and Stanford, did unofficial visits and camps and whatnot while he was out there. And then Notre Dame said, hey, do you want to come on an official visit June 18th? So he goes from Northern California, the Bay Area, out to Notre Dame for his official. So Notre Dame flew him back to the Bay Area for his 2 officials back-to-back with Cal and Stanford. That's crazy to me. And then I guess whatever the last school is that hosts him, and we'll get off this tangent. I mean, that's a drive from Cal to Stanford. So then can Stanford send him back to Massachusetts? Or I think he's actually going back to Canada where he's from with his mom. There's just a really interesting stuff there. But a couple more guys to talk about here for official visitors June 18th to the 20th. Nicholas Anderson from Katy, Texas. This is a guy I put in a FutureCast pick in for following his visit. Receiver recruiting has just kind of been, I don't know what the right word is. It's maybe not difficult, but just kind of been intriguing to follow. You have 4 spots presumably, but 6 guys seem to be leaning Notre Dame. But from my sources in South Bend, it certainly seems like Anderson is leaning towards Notre Dame. I believe he's visiting Oregon this weekend. Maybe that's canceled. I haven't been able to catch up with Anderson yet, but I'm leaning towards the Irish. You guys, for watching YouTube, you see that picture of him there. He looks like 14 or 15, right? I mean, he looks young in the face, and to me, that's a good thing. He is just kind of scratching the surface to me of how good he can be. And the last thing I want to be is, Notre Dame got a 3-star. Let me guess, Mike, he is a high ceiling guy. He can be really good. I'm going to call it how I see it, and Anderson has all the potential in the world. If you want to go look at its ESPN ranking and go off of that, I mean, he's the number 61 player in the country and a 4-star. So, you tell me which ranking you want to go with. But I really like Nick Anderson. I think he'd be a good fit for Notre Dame. And then last but certainly not least, the highest ranked recruit that Notre Dame had on campus last weekend in the 2022 class was Xavier Nwankpa, Pleasant Hill, Iowa, Southeast Polk, number 35 player in the country, number 3 safety in America per Rivals. Hard to read this one, but I actually got to speak with him right before we started recording, and he said this was one of his best visits he's ever taken. He adores Chris O'Leary, Notre Dame's safeties coach. I think it's Notre Dame or Ohio State. Texas A&M is getting mentioned a good bit for him, but I think that Notre Dame's got a shot. And I don't know exactly, but I would guess Ohio State right now. But they've already got 4 defensive back commitments. Notre Dame only has 1. It's kind of a moot point because Notre Dame's going to get up to 5, in my opinion. So whether you're 2nd or 5th, does it really matter? But that might be a factor right now that Ohio State's already got several DB commitments and still are recruiting some other guys. So toss up right now for me for where Xavier Nwankpa's leaning, but I'll lean Notre Dame. Excuse me, lean Ohio State.
Yeah, that's almost feels a little bit like house money of, hey, if you get them, great. A little bit of an upset. They certainly put time and effort into it, but yet one where it seems like, at least for a while, just again from what you've said before, that Ohio State or others have held that pole position for a little bit. But that's all you could ask for if you were Notre Dame, was to have him say the kind of stuff that you just say he told you. So
yeah.
So we have some unofficial visitors coming in. Notre Dame does this same weekend, and just overall this week had a trio of guys from Georgia made the trip in this week. So running back Justice Haynes, safety Caleb Downs, cornerback Ethan Nation. Those are all 2023 recruits. Then you have another big 2023 recruit coming in on an unofficial. That's Vernon, top 10 recruit, defensive end in the 23 class, and then a few official visitors. I'll let you set the table for what to expect and who to expect on campus this week.
Yeah. This weekend it's a good group. It's mainly official visitors though, so dang, I keep doing this. That's mainly committed guys. Excuse me. They are officials, but they're committed guys. So we're not going to spend time on the committed guys. We'll do that at another point. But this is a huge unofficial visit for Notre Dame. Vernon. Notre Dame's actually getting another elite defensive end visiting this weekend in Luke Montgomery. But really want to touch on Vernon because he has been considered an Ohio State lean forever. You see FutureCast picks in have gone for him, back August of 2020. Vernon was Notre Dame's very first offer in the 2023 class. That was back in January of 2020. Number 9 player in the country. I am told that his visit to Notre Dame for he did Irish Invasion, was incredible. Like, he spent a couple days at Notre Dame, and it was just an incredible visit. And I know I'll say, oh, this visit went good, this visit went good. Well, Mike, what visits don't go well? I get that. But this one was special. Vernon, as we're recording this, is at Ohio State today, so we'll see how that goes. But, I think that Notre Dame can pull an upset here. And if you're going to make me predict right now, I think Notre Dame pulls off the upset for Brendan Vernon. Patrick's face just went, whoa. I think so. If I'm putting in a pick right now, it's Notre Dame. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. So let's move into 4 key official visitors for this weekend. Zach Rice, Lynchburg Liberty Christian Academy, 5-star offensive tackle, number 19 player in the land, number 4 player at his position. This is a guy I've seen in person. He is an absolute freak. Massive. He's a tackle all the way. Maybe he's a guard. Like, this is a dude, a bona fide 5-star player. And, Notre Dame, where are they running? We'll see. Virginia, North Carolina have been the schools that have been rumored as the top 2 for a long time. Alabama has come on really strong. Notre Dame has been involved in the recruitment for over a year, I think. But I don't know. Like, I wouldn't think that this is going to happen for Notre Dame. This would be a huge, cherry on top for Jeff Quinn. I don't think he would expect Zach Rice to commit to Notre Dame and eventually sign with them, but you're getting him on campus. What else can you ask for? So kudos to Notre Dame for getting Zach Rice on campus. I've heard that Rice, I know it. He's told me this. He is just not extremely responsive to coaches like that. That's how he's been throughout the recruiting process. So it's huge for Notre Dame, to keep churning along and getting him on campus. That's a big one. This is a recent development, just in the past couple weeks. So Ashton Craig from Lawrenceburg, Indiana, participated at a Notre Dame camp, worked out for Tommy Rees and Jeff Quinn. I'm told he blew the staff away. He doesn't have an offer from the Irish yet, but I think that might happen this weekend. And if Notre Dame offers him, I'll put it a future cast pick. Like, I don't think Notre Dame would offer him and be like, you're not allowed to commit. I think if they offer him, it's go time. So I would expect that one. I think he's more likely an interior player for Notre Dame. But again, the staff saw him in a workout, and he's been just rising up the charts. He's at Ohio State as well for camp today. I honestly wouldn't be shocked to see the Buckeyes offer him. He's just rising up the charts. I was after him. Nebraska, Michigan. He's got a long offer. Let's just see on his rivals page, 28 in total. And a couple more. Ryan Baer from Eastlake North, Ohio. He's expected to visit this weekend. Futurecast just went in from Justin. Oh, that was actually in April. Justin Rowland put in a pick for him to go to Kentucky back in April. He was just there this past weekend. It looks like he's at Michigan State right now. For an official, he's also been at Virginia, Illinois. So he's going to Notre Dame this weekend. Listed at 6'8", 331 pounds. I'm told he's more 6'7", 335. Not a big difference there, but he's a tackle. Could play guard, though, even at that size. Ryan Baer, one of Notre Dame's top offensive line targets. More of a recent offer. It's just in the past few weeks, but emerged as a guy that Jeff Quinn really likes. And then this is a huge one as well. C.J. Williams, Mater Dei High School down in Southern California, number 29 overall player in the country, number 3 wide receiver. Seems like a Notre Dame-Texas battle. I'm not sure about a future cast pick on this one, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I've been close to pulling the trigger on it for about 2 or 3 months, but I've been hesitant. I don't quite have the balls for this one yet, but I'm close. That's for sure. So that's what she said. But so that's the official visitors. Kind of the biggest names to watch. Notre Dame needs to keep working on those guys who visited the past 2 weekends. To be honest with you, Notre Dame would love to just finish this class before the start of the season with all the guys who visited in June. When you look at the board, there's no one that screams to me like this Notre Dame can't fill up now because they're bringing this guy in the fall. The only guy I can think of is Andre Green, but they could take C.J. Williams, Tobias Merriweather, Nicholas Anderson, and hold on to Marion Walker and be happy and be done at receiver. Notre Dame would love to just, they brought in their key guys in June, and then just love to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think CJ is the most important official visitor that we did an entire episode on our 5 most important. He was on mine for the same reasons now as it was then, and he was on yours as well. Yeah, Zach Rice, again, house money situation. You got him on campus, just see what happens. Although, well, yes, I know Notre Dame is paying for him to be there, but just go with the analogy for me for a minute here. Yeah, the Ryan Baer, Ashton Craig part is interesting. Offensive line seems like it could go, a number of ways here, especially with, what Joe Brunner does, or how long they want to wait for that, or what have you. Where certainly if you think Ashton Craig offer and impending future cast from you, and whatever kind of impression they can make on Ryan Baer with being a newer entrant into that recruitment, who knows? Yeah, that one in particular is it feels like there's like 5 different dominoes you could push down, and it goes into 5 other sub paths, and endless combinations of, all right, here's these 5 guys or 4 guys or whatever that they end up with in the
Yeah.
offensive line class.
Well, there's 3 position groups, if I combine corner and safety into one, just defensive back. There's 3 position groups that have 2 or more spots remaining. That's offensive line. There's 8 guys on the board right now. I guess if you say defensive line with Cyrus Moss and Anthony Lucas, but it's offensive line, receiver, and defensive back. Those are the 3 that could go many different ways. But offensive line is the most uncertain one right now. Like DB, I feel good where Notre Dame's at with Devin Moore. I still think they're going to land Benjamin Morrison, but there's so many different possibilities on the offensive line. Like, I think maybe other than Zach Rice, I could see them landing the other 7, or any combination of the 7, I should say.